Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Marcia Parker.
Fuego here.
And we are here to review a brand new series that is available for you guys called Utopia. Spaced it for a second. This one is available on Amazon Prime, and quite frankly, the reason I did hear about this, but I didn't actually dive deep into anything about it until Marcia suggested it through our group feed, like, hey, I think you guys, and specifically Cecil, would like Utopia, and then Fuego ended up watching the first episode and kind of confirming what Marcia said, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll have to try it. And within about 5 minutes, I knew that the show was definitely right up my alley, and so I cruised through. It's an 8-episode series that are about hour-long episodes, so it's nice, it's substantial, but it is a really, really good first season, if I might jump into my overall thoughts. I was very impressed with it. I'm excited to talk about it, but it was better than it had any right to be honest with you, with the story they were telling. So I was quite impressed. It's very well done storytelling, high stakes storytelling throughout, even considering what the actual conceit of the show is. So I was very impressed with it, very happy with it, very excited for a second season. Marcia?
Yeah, it blew me out of the water right off the bat as well. Like, you just didn't know what you were getting into, and then you're like, oh, this is so great, because I mean, I could be one of these people. Because it's just an interesting concept of you know, you have a group of fans that like are really into this material, this comic book, and have all these conspiracy theories and what's up. I know I'm going to the story, and I apologize. It's just so good because, like you said, you're like, doesn't have a right to like be what it is, but it grows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. And there's a lot of like little things throughout the series where you're like, oh man, how long has she been laying there? And like, you know, and like just all these little pieces that start pulling together. All the acting is phenomenal. The great acting cast members. The choice of the different characters is amazing. The writing was great. The cinematography, all of it, like it all pieced together perfectly. And there was a few people that I saw. I was like, oh man, like that guy's in it, and he didn't last very long, but you know, it's okay. Like there's a lot of little pieces, and it makes it so much fun. And I think any of our viewers, I think, would really appreciate this show if they haven't watched it already, just because it's got all of the elements. It's horror, it's comic book, it's nerdy, and it's science-y, and it's, you know,
Thriller,
and it's just you know, there's just so many cool, like, conspiracy and mystery,
yeah.
like all of it rolled into one in a really, really profound way. So I really dug it.
Wow. So this is one that I know we did a trailer reaction for. I know it for sure,
Okay.
because that was why it was on my radar in the first place. I know it was a remake of a UK show that was very controversial because of some of the adult situations, how violent it was. This one was definitely a lot more violent than I was anticipating. Props for that, which I will give them credits for. And I love the setup, I love the mythology, the really unfortunate convenience of how poignant this sort of storytelling was in 2020, similar to what we're about to see with The Stand next month in December. I liked a lot of it, but I must say I felt like, especially in the back half, it kind of went off the rails of the stupid train, and it really, it almost came to the point of self-parody with what this ragtag team of kids ends up going against, and that for me did not really work. I also, our main character who joins our crew and who is the link to the actual source material they are so obsessed with, I hated her character with a passion. I could not stand her. I thought she was a piece of trash, and she makes a we'll get into the story, but for the most part, Cusack was better than I have seen him in a long time in this movie. He owned it in his role. The ensemble was really good. Rainn Wilson. The production value was top notch. We don't know if there's a second season just yet, but they leave it wide open for one. I want more from this world. I geeked out like crazy, especially early on. I just didn't like some of the scripting choices as they progressed through, but the actual setup and the overall concept I thought was awesome.
So to that end, I mean, the story of Utopia is, it starts off with this group of people getting texts that, well, actually it starts off with this couple moving into a house of a dead relative, or a relative that has passed on, that she has inherited the house. They're going through, and yeah, he's a hoarder. And at one part of the house, the husband finds like a couple of art pages from a comic book that's kind of like not put together. But, she's like, just throw it away. And he's like, no, sometimes these things can be worth a lot of money. And so he gathers up all the pages, and it turns out it's an issue, or just a copy of something called Utopia. And he posts
the next edition.
Well, yeah, it's a sequel to a book called Dystopia.
Right.
And so they put it on, or they go to a convention, a comic book convention, to try and sell it. And all of a sudden, as soon as that plan starts to be enacted, we find, or we start, we come into contact with our main characters for the entire series, which are a bunch of, conspiracy theorists, even in and amongst the nerd culture, regarding the Dystopia comic. And they've all been waiting, and suddenly Utopia has surfaced, and they're all like giddy beyond belief that it's surfaced. And they go to this convention where it's for sale by, it's an anonymous sort of auction kind of situation where each person goes in and meets the people trying to sell it and tells what they're willing to pay for it and all this stuff. So this group of people that have been talking for like a year or more together on social media that have never actually met, but they all believe that the Dystopia comic was actually representative of much more. It actually predicted
prophetic aspect.
It predicted viral outbreaks in the human race that have actually come to pass. And so apparently they predict that Utopia, the new installment of the series, would do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So everyone's trying to track it down, and not only just them, but there are some really heavy hitters. There's people coming willing to drop all kinds of money on it, and then there's even more people, a two-man group, as it were, that show up to try and get Utopia and tie up any loose ends of anyone that might have seen Utopia. And that's where things take a turn, where people start to die in the first episode. It is a very high-stakes series because, this is a very serious book that people don't realize. It's funny, the core group talk to some other fans, and you can tell that they're just the standard comic book nerds that just like it for surface reasons. And they're like, you guys don't see any of this? And Tree from Happy Death Day,
Jessica
and
Roth,
Happy Death Day to You, Jessica Roth, she's one of the characters that's kind of like, don't you guys see that this represents this, and this represents this, and all this? So it was just a really interesting story. So these core characters are trying to track down and protect Utopia, while others are trying to track down and use it for nefarious purposes. There are characters from the actual comic that are actually existing in real life. Yeah, and they all come to a head for this 8-episode series. That's pretty much as we can say without spoiling.
This is a lot to spoil.
And I was intrigued the entire time. I really liked it. Marcia?
I don't throw, and you can attest to this, I don't throw out things very often.
Mm-mm.
So when I do, I'm like, it's purposeful, because I'm like, yeah, they actually really dig this. So I loved it. I just thought it was good. I love the story writing, and I can see your point
it's that character's motivations in general.
Well, at the end, it kind of felt like they didn't really know how to tie things together, but then they kind of found their way in a way. But it's still really good, and there are characters that you love to hate, and they're not good people. They're anti-villains, and there are some that are genuinely good people. But
one who was named after a fast food chain, and then you find out it's just because he liked raisins.
It is interesting, but I don't know. The way it's filmed, and I'll keep saying it, the way that it's filmed, the way it is acted, the overall story writing, and how everything ties together. And I love the fact that it's like a bunch of nerds like really geeked out on this source material that actually ended up being way bigger, and it's like their conspiracy is like real and true, and I think that's kind of fun. Almost like Stranger Things in a way, where like, oh, this is a real thing, like this is bigger than us. So I dug that, and I want to see more. I want to see where they can take this, because it could go either way, really. They could either take it to the next level, or it could kind of like whimper off, kind of like some Stranger Things did.
They've
But
been trying to film that fourth season for a while now.
their kids are gonna be way too old pretty soon. But I don't know. Overall, I think they did a good job.
Yeah. My gripes are really nitpicky, if I'm going to be totally fair about it, because it was how certain characters were written at certain times, and then we forget about really terrible things that they do. Two characters in particular, but most notably one at the beginning of the second season, and then all the rest of the characters are okay with what this character has done, who is just comes and basically takes control of everybody. It's like an alpha sort of situation. I did not like that storytelling choice, and it made me just not equipped to like that character for most of it. And then there's something else with a like training tutor sort of person that is encountered in like under these subways in Chicago, and it's the same sort of situation. Well, they were going to kill that person, so I had to do it first, and you're like, where's the logic in this? I don't know. But it's a damaged character, so without getting into spoilers,
She's very damaged.
Obviously, but it condones all the stupid shit that is done. I was playing the pronoun game specifically here. But the world building is dense and deep for this, which is what I like the most. And also the fact that you have a villain, without spoiling who it is, that in this Mr. Rabbit, that there's a particular scene of dialogue between this character and another one where when you see the conceit and the justification for the plan, the scariest villains are where the plan makes sense.
Yeah.
And that is a terrifically written scene, and one of the best I've seen from the character who's tied up without specifying who it is. What delivery as we segue into the acting and stuff like that. I thought it was exceptional stuff and scary, and all the just believable points that were made. So.
Yeah, I guess that's
a
a
real villain,
thing,
right?
Though, like when the villain starts to make sense to you, you're like,
take away those human rights and all that other stuff. There's so much going on in this show, which is why. I nitpicked, but I still was really impressed with the storytelling here.
Marcia, what were your thoughts on the acting? Why don't you start there?
I thought the acting was phenomenal, and there was a particular, like I kind of alluded to, there's a particular character that stayed in the same position for multiple episodes, which was like, and it kind of made me giggle a little bit, because I'm like, how long is it going to be like that?
One of the most prominent people in here too, probably the number 3 as far as all of the cast, as far as like notoriety.
But right, and just like their choices of the cast members that go in certain directions that you just weren't expecting, and like they're keeping certain ones on where they let some go. But overall, the acting was phenomenal. I don't think there was one person that pulled me out of it. I felt that they did such a great job casting each person that it was very believable, their character and who they were, and it felt like they like owned their character. I don't have anything really negative to say about when you're thinking about acting. But yeah, John Cusack is always a fucking fave of mine. Like, sorry, excuse me.
No,
but he is just amazing.
He's
actor.
especially good in this, though.
Yeah, it was nice to see him stretch his legs a little bit, and I liked Rainn Wilson as well. I thought he did a good job. I thought the core group all did a good job. They, that's the nice thing. The main group, like, you can see how a bunch of different viewers can find themselves in one of these characters.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're all relatable in a way. So no wonder a vast audience would really be attracted to this show. I think if they watched it, I haven't heard enough people talking about it. So that's part of why we wanted to review it.
And I feel like it's one of those word of mouth things, because you're not seeing it really advertised anywhere. And the only reason why I knew about it was because I didn't hear it through with you guys. Like, my brother was like, you need to watch this, and I'm like, all right, I'll try it. And I'm like, holy cow, this is a winner. And that's when I asked if you guys had watched it yet, because I'm like, this is crazy. And I really do think it's word of mouth, because then I told like 3 more people, and they hadn't heard of it, and then they watched it, and they're like, this is amazing. Like, how come I'm not hearing about this? There's just so much material out there right now, especially everybody's at home, and everybody's just binging everything that like nobody's talking about, like the heavy hitters that are out there, and this is definitely one that you need to spend the time to watch because it's worth it.
I have to call out the 2 younger kids, who the youngest of their
Yeah.
crew, especially the girl who, you know, our younger kid who you think is like grown up and he's not. He was good, but then the younger girl that he befriends, who kind of joins their group, and honestly,
She's
the
badass.
and the trauma that she goes through, like holy crap, man! And then when she shoots that character, you're like, whoa! But then Cusack even commends her. He's like, you did that? It's like, damn. So yeah, I mean, honestly, least favorite of all of the actors, and it was more so the way he was written, kind of snivelly, was the love interest of the girl who had the pre-existing
and I think
condition.
There has to be a snivel.
Exactly, he was
He was
my
written
least
that way,
favorite.
so.
Yeah, totally. And dude who got his eye scooped out, man, he was great. He
Mhm.
was maybe
love
my
Uber
him.
conspiracy.
he was
theorist.
he was maybe my favorite of their little clique
I
of
love
friends. So yeah,
And he had it rough too.
he really did.
He really did have it rough.
And also props to that Arby guy, because and the weird arc that he had, I somehow found more acceptable than Jessica's. I don't know why, because he was even more bloodthirsty, but yet he was, I don't know, he seemed much more brainwashed at times, and without spoiling stuff, I have to kind of cut it off there, but I mean, his cold stoicness and yet naivety
he had
at
a job
times,
to do.
and
But he was very like,
childish.
yeah, he was. I mean, he obviously was
Or
bred
childlike,
to
maybe.
do a certain thing, and when it didn't make sense, when it clicked, and it's like, this doesn't make sense to me anymore. I'm changing my ideas of what to do, and how I want to act, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's cool, and he was very surprising, and I like that. I do like that each character has an arc, and it's not just. This is just who they are, you know. Like you're just supposed to accept this of who they are. They do sway and they do reveal themselves in good ways, and it's not forced either. So
Yeah, they
it's
grow and change, come together.
I'm very into organic writing these days. If you've been watching the last 4 episodes I've been a part of, very into organic.
So yeah, I mean, this all the acting is really excellent in this show. I think the technical aspects are amazing. It is, again, it's a Prime show, and you guys, if you watch The Boys, you know the level at which Prime can do. It is HBO level at this point already, and this is of that ilk. I mean, this is high production value, high investment, well acted, just totally worth your time. So, and the effects that you get are jarring and well done, because you don't expect some of this stuff to happen that actually happens, and you're just like, Jesus, like from the very first episode you're like, damn, this is hardcore stuff, you know what I mean? And it's the effects only reinforce that.
And I'm glad you mentioned The Boys, because that's what I would compare it to.
As far as tone,
as
like
a tone,
ultra violent, and yet
violent,
still
and it's
stakes
and it's
comedy.
kind of like not what you would normally see with the material that it's being sourced to. So, because with The Boys it's super ultra violent, but it's with like superheroes, like a side of superheroes that you're used to seeing, or how they're portrayed, and this is it's different because it's super ultra violent for comic book nerds, right? And you're not used to seeing that. They're usually like a bunch of stoners that you know. So
it's very. I don't
You're
know
like,
if I agree with that, but okay, fair enough.
well, you know what I mean.
No, I
like
know,
like
just
how
looking
they're portrayed, and
yeah.
so this is
The
just
stereotypes.
you're breaking out of the box, and it's so fun to watch, because now like I'm watching something fun and interesting. Like it's not the same formula we're seeing over and over and over again, and I think that's one of the good things that's come out of this year, is that people are breaking out of the box, because people are tired of watching the same thing over and over again, because they're forced to watch the stuff because they can't go anywhere else.
Yep.
I also really like the corresponding comic book artwork. I thought I'm
that
not sure
art
who
is beautiful.
did it, but
I'm not sure either. It's very Brian Boland-esque though at times.
Yeah, and there was also that one episode where they went into full-on like moving pages of a comic, which I thought looked really rad too. And,
that was cool.
I mean, I can gripe about stuff like a little bit of the set design here and there, where they're supposed to be all incognito and they're driving around with the same dirty vehicle with blood on the windshield the entire time, trying to lay low, and they're not changing their clothes. But that's all just dumb stuff for me to complain about, because like the scope and the scale of how they filmed this, how they put it together, the storytelling and the depth of it. It's a winner, man. You guys need to check it out.
It's almost, but it's kind of funny that they are like not thinking about the small things while they're dealing with all
They're
this
so
stuff.
concerned with bigger stuff.
Right,
That
like,
makes sense.
You're like, oh, we're gonna have to watch this. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it kind of adds to who they are as people, right? They're like so like stuck in their own like drama. They're not
Focus.
paying. Yeah, they're like laser focused on what they're trying to resolve. That they're not paying attention to the world around them. And it's
Good call. That
Track.
disputes my grudge a little bit. So no.
So yeah, guys, I think that's going to pretty much cover our thoughts on this one. Why don't you guys let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below? I'd be interested to hear what y'all's opinion is. So if you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe. But until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Marcia.
Gracias to our patrons. I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.
Watch this show.